Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Yogacises podcast. I have Andrea Powers here today. She is a yoga instructor and she's also the founder of Yoga Board. She recently got a new certification, and I'm really here to welcome her. Excited for her to be here, and I won't say much. I'll let her do an introduction, tell us more about herself, and tell us about the new certification and how that helps with your yoga practice and teaching. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Andrea Powers. As you said, I'm the owner and creator of Powers Yoga, um, and then the inventor of the Powers Yoga board. I started practicing yoga probably about, oh gosh, I'll probably date myself now, but about 25 years ago. Started with meditation, mostly spiritual work. And then from there, I got into yoga. From there, I started to get into various types of yoga. I really just like um, all different styles. There's no style I do not like. Pretty much, I love it all. But I started getting into stand-up paddleboard yoga. Um, which I loved because I'm a water sign. I love being out on water. My family's from Puerto Rico, so everything I have to be by water. And when I was teaching, out in Jersey, we only have a very short period of time that you can be outdoors or out in water at least and enjoy it. So it was only 2 months and went indoors, and I wanted to bring the boards indoors, but the paddle boards are 12 feet long, so that's kind of impossible. The ones I had at the time were 12 feet long. And so my friend was making, or acquaintance was making long skateboards. And I had seen the skateboard kind of go by, and I had three, what do they call them? Trestles, I think. I'm not sure. Tracks on the bottom, and I developed the board from there. It was about 6, 7 years ago. From there, it is growing, and it has reinvented itself since COVID and having to go indoors. Now it's kind of, I've gotten a spruce, and people being a little bit more used to being outdoors or back indoors. Yeah, so that's the yoga board. And then you were talking about the certification.
Yes.
So the recent certification that I had gotten, so that was with the kids. So I got I've decided when I'm not doing yoga, a lot of people don't know that when I'm not doing yoga, I work with kids. I work with kids inside the yoga studio, but then I also work with kids outside the yoga studio. And so I decided that I work with a lot of kids. I've been hired to work with kids with doing yoga to help them with their everyday skills. And breathing techniques I bring in. And so recently I just decided that I wanted to take that a step further, and I became a registered behavior technician, which is a separate entity from yoga, but I use my yoga skills with that. Or I've had I work as a DDD provider, where I have outside adults or kids. They are in a program, and they will find providers that work with them. So that is more to do with state, where the RBT is more, I guess, on a personal. They're more in business, if that makes sense. Where the other DDD is more nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay.
So and they love the board too. And yeah, so it kind of like a win-win. The two go together with the kids, because sometimes it's hard to get kids to focus. Right? When I teach kids yoga, I don't really, I mean, I teach them yoga, but I teach them in a way that it's fun. It's through games and exercises. keep them going. And I found that the board, the swaying side to side, it gives them something to do without, and still getting exercise in the process and working on balance and focusing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Those are really creative ways to work with kids and just to keep them entertained and just to get them going. The board idea is a really good idea to do indoors and outdoors. I'm just
I
curious, do you actually have it with you?
Yeah, it's here right behind.
Oh, is there a way to show it? Like kind of.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. So let me just, I'm going to back this up. So the one thing that I love about the board is that it works on balance. It works on your bandhas. It works on focus, concentration. I mean, you just like out on water. Have you done SUP yoga?
I've done it once.
Okay, so once is enough to know that if you look to the left or the right, you're going to fall into the water because you're shifting your weight too. So same thing on the board. You want to take it slow because just even the turn of the head, you may wipe out, which is fine. It just teaches you to get back on. So let me show you too how easy it is. So currently, yeah, I've been selling them throughout United States. I used to sell them before all this happened. I mostly sold them to yoga studios, right? People weren't used to really, as I was saying earlier, working out at home. Used to going to a studio. Now I mostly sell them individually because everybody's buying them at home. And it's just a great, another way to practice. And the other beautiful thing about it is that you can't do an hour. I mean, you can, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to. Half an hour is all you need. 20 minutes, half an hour classes, because it really intensifies every pose. From just chair pose, because if I'm doing chair, on the ground, not enough, right? I feel my legs, but then if I'm doing chair here, now the whole time I'm working on just trying to keep the board still, and I'm feeling my muscles. Probably, I would say, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I would say 25% more, just because of the fact that I have to cut my workout time in a half on the. So I'm going to back it this up. Just all right. So there's 3 cushions. Right now, I would say I probably have it like at a medium level.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that last part? You got cut off a little bit.
Oh, sure. I was saying that there's 3 cushions underneath the board, right? Yeah. Depending on how much air you put into the cushion, depends on how much stability. So less air, more stability because you're closer to the ground. More air, right? You're going to be less stable. So right now I have it probably at a less stable. And so from here, I always start, like I would start just like I would out in water, out in a paddleboard stance, just like in yoga and mountain pose. Right? So from here, I tell my clients all the time, my students, that it's really about going nice and slow. I can go fast, but then my board's going to rock side to side. The goal is to try to keep the board still. Right? So we want to try to ease forward. And again, as I was saying, anytime you change your head position, okay, that's going to really challenge your balance. Anytime you take a different perspective on your yoga practice, right? So from here, I can fly up, but if I fly up, I'm going to probably wipe out, right? So I want to be real meticulous when I come up. It really teaches people to slow down and practice. Right? So here I imagine my board's cut in half. So my left big toe is hugging the midline, and my right toe and my left toes hugging. And then from here, when I'm ready, and I feel like the board, I have a good position. There we go. It's stable. Then I'm ready to float myself up. And then from here, we grab the edge of the board, okay, just like we would like a surfboard. Okay? And then we'll press it back to down dog. Now from here, down dog, I'm going to look at my hands until I feel stable. Then I can go ahead and drop the head down. Dropping the head down actually is more advanced. For a beginner, I wouldn't recommend that because, again, as soon as you drop that head, right? So usually for a beginner, you can even hear my heart rate, but usually for a beginner, I tell them to look at the hands. And then we usually do a little bit of a duck dive, come down, and we paddle out. We treat the board just like we would as a surfboard or as a paddleboard, depending on what class I'm teaching. All right. From there, we can also use the board as a prop. Right? So now I'm using it as a block because for me, I have to use blocks. I have shorter arms. So blocks help me a lot be able to get into some of the poses. One pose, I would say like my nemesis pose, like it's like I have to take like forever to get into it, the firefly, because I can't get my hands down. But with the board, at least I can use the board to now lift myself up. And core. The core work, because we know to get into all those floating poses, right? That's all core. So if you can do this here, you can do it on the mat, right? So again, we can use the board in a lot of different ways. I also teach a SUP fit class. So in the SUP fit classes, we may use the board then where we're using the cushions a lot. So I may have, and all my classes are still yogi. So even if it's SUP fit, it's still like a yoga atmosphere. And maybe we'll bring the hands to the heart and we do our prayer squats then, right? And again, if I'm going, I can do them real fast, but then the boards can wipe me out. Right? Maybe we'll do, I did this weekend, we did lunge work, just stepping forward and back and forth. So again, it helps with balance. It helps, obviously, with balance, helps our students learn how to slow down. It's fun. It's challenging. But it also helps people work on their balance. My first headstand wasn't in a yoga class. It was out on the water. And I think it was because it was the first time I actually felt what I was supposed to be using to engage to get my legs up. Where before I didn't understand what the teacher or the trainer was asking. I just didn't understand. So I was always at a wall, right? Until then, I went out in the water. I lifted up my legs, and then I was like, oh, I felt the lock, like, ding. And then I was like, ching, ching. And then I was up in headstand, went into like a scorpion, like my body just was naturally going into it, you know? And even to this day, I feel more comfortable doing it out on the water than in the studio. I guess I'm just, yeah. So the board is supposed to represent that. That feeling of similarity. It's not exactly 100% feel like you're out on water, but it's very, very close to any other board that's really out there.
That's
yeah.
Thank you so much for demonstrating it. It's so much clearer. I mean, if you're just listening to the podcast, then you might want to tune into the YouTube video as well. Then you can really see what Andrea has been demonstrating, because just hearing it, I mean, you can probably get an idea, but like actually watching the video will make more sense.
Yeah. And you can, sorry if I'm out of breath. It really, intensifies. I don't sweat. I mean, I do, but it takes me a bit. Especially if you've been doing yoga for a while. This
Yeah.
almost feels like I'm back to the beginning.
That's awesome. Now
You
that
know?
kind of brings me some questions that I have for you in terms
Yeah.
of, because I'm pregnant right now, and
Okay, I
second
saw that.
trimester.
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. So my question is, can a person who's pregnant be doing this, like a different trimesters?
You know what? You know, it's the fall part, right?
Mm,
So I would say like, it would be, you have a good awareness, right? I wouldn't recommend it really.
mm,
I wouldn't. I'm very cautious. I'm a
yeah.
scaredy cat. If you ever come to my aerial yoga class, I'm very cautious because last thing I want to do is somebody to get hurt. I'm not a doctor, but I would think that first trimester, not a big deal, right? But if you're starting to show, then your weight distribution is going to be off. Pretty much, I would then, for someone like that, maybe on a lower level, right?
Mm,
So maybe doing more cleanser, more, and even a little core work, the plank positions. But I would be a little bit more mindful on some of the other things that we do. So we do duck dives and we do pop ups and yeah,
that makes more sense. Or
yeah.
maybe even instead of like getting on the board, the whole body getting on the board, maybe just
Mhm.
maybe leave out a leg or an arm on the floor for stability while do
Yeah,
some of the.
I definitely think that like truthfully, if I was pregnant, I'd be fine with it. I
Mm,
was a gymnast, but I know how to move my body. Like if I would maybe do one leg on, maybe one leg off.
mm,
So it's almost like a step.
mm,
And you can take it in a slower where you're just walking, right? But
right.
in a class environment, it makes it a little challenging. I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm thinking in a class environment, to keep up. But if somebody was to work as for you as yourself, and you're a yoga teacher, you can take it home and you can do the class because you know what you can do, what you can't do. You don't, the ego, doesn't
Right.
come into play.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that it's not necessarily that someone who's pregnant can't do it. I just think that it's really would have to be, yeah, very cautious.
Right. Not only that, the caution is important, but also depending on the person's fitness level prior to this, if they have yoga experience,
Right.
how frequently they do yoga, and also how comfortable they feel, like in terms of, did they start doing this at the beginning, like you said, when during the first trimester,
Right.
or they started during the second trimester trying. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, if it wasn't someone who was a yoga teacher, I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe the first trimester, but
Mhm.
there's plenty of other styles of yoga that they would benefit much more from.
Right.
Yeah, but if somebody who's athletic, who's like me and who's been doing it for a while, yeah, I'd be fine with that, and
Hmm.
I would probably enjoy it just because I was always looking for ways um, to keep fit and have fun while doing it. Right?
Speaking of having different ways to have fun, and as a yoga teacher and also as an occupational therapist, this gets me thinking, because you're really modifying it, like more occupational based in terms of, for somebody who loves to be in the water, and because of the
Mhm.
season changes, and sometimes really cold out there, it's icy, you really can't get on the water. So this
Right.
is really modifying it to bring it home where they can still kind of get the feeling, not 100% exactly the same, but you still get the motion, the feeling,
Mhm.
even at home.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, it's just a new way for you to challenge your muscles, right? And I don't know, I plateaued for a while, I did have an injury recently, then I had it start all over again. So I was like, oh boy, I never want, I remember like like some of the poses just became so easy that I almost took for granted, right?
Mhm.
Like, and then when I got injured, I was like, oh my God. And I started doing it again. I started, everything hurt. Um, but I remember back then when I was so fluent and I went on the board, I just remember feeling like, oh, good. Like I'm being challenged again. Here's a challenge.
Mhm.
And that's for the seasoned yogi, right? But then there's also what I notice is like the beginners love it because I get a lot of people who never have done yoga and they come to aerial and sup.
Hmm.
They do the aerial and they do the sup yoga. And I always ask, like, like just out of curiosity, like they're like, because it sounds fun. Right? So which is great because then I started realizing like, wow, okay, so then they go into the yoga. Everybody
Mhm.
finds their path so differently. Like some people find it. I found it first in meditation. Mine was through meditation. I was spiritual, and then I found yoga, and I was like, oh, oh, this is. Oh, I know. Oh, and I was like, oh, that's
Making the
pretty cool.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah, and then some people they get into the physical, and then all of a sudden they get into the spiritual, and then it's like, yeah. So
Mhm.
and then with the SUP, I see people come in and then they get comfortable. Maybe they wouldn't have done a regular yoga class, or maybe they had a bad experience in a class. So this kind of just takes that part out. That
Mhm.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's also working on really different things, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, like psychologically, physically, like the balance and all these different areas to tack like creativity too, and also finding this body awareness, in
Yeah.
space. And
And to touch upon the spirituality part, it is very spiritual, right? It's water. We're mostly made out of water, right? And then, to have a water practice, I see that, you know, Matt is like an earthbound, right? It's like we're grounded, we're solid. And aerial, I always saw as like, there's your air, and there's your vadas, love the aerial, and then you have your water. So you have certain, and then hot yogas, you have your fire. So you have all different elements, and water, to me, it's very cleansing. It's very purifying, right? The other thing about what I loved, what I saw the correlation when I went to Hawaii, and and that's how this all kind of really started, right? I was always around surf culture, not a surfer, but just around surf culture. I tried. I'm definitely afraid of the ocean, but I go out. I go out because I don't want anything to ever stop me from doing something, right? So anyway, so I went to Hawaii and I took a surf lesson because I'm not going to surf by myself in Hawaii. So anyway, when they taught me how to surf, I realized the way they taught, I was like, this is yoga. They were like, step your right leg up. I was like, lunge. They were like, pop up. I was like, cobra. And they were like, pop up. I was like, okay, step up. So it was like and that connected it. And
Mhm.
then it was a yoga convention, Wonderlust. And but I didn't want to really do yoga. I was like, I do yoga all the time. Like I own a yoga studio, and I'm doing yoga all the time. So I left the yoga retreat for 3 days and I went and hung out with like the locals because I really wanted to get into the culture again. See, so I went and did yoga, but I did it out like like not at Wonderlust. I went out to the yoga studios, and there wasn't yoga studios. They were like outside, like beautiful, like experience. Anyway, they started telling me that, like, oh man, you have the aloha spirit, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm like, yeah, you got that aloha spirit. You're very free, like, and then I realized, huh, okay, I have aloha spirit. So that's yoga. That's all right, like our spirit, right? And then I started talking more, and in yoga it's prana, and for them it was mana, and so there was a lot of similarities. So with the culture of surf and Hawaii and water, and my culture, Puerto Rico, and so bringing that all together, spirituality of all that, being out on water on your board is I don't even care if I catch a wave. Just being out on water, sitting on, that's my favorite part, just being until I see a big bubble and I'm like, ah! But yeah, it's just something so powerful,
Mhm.
and the energy from that. So
It's so peaceful too.
yeah.
Very relaxing, it's distressing. It's just really calming. That's awesome.
When I meditate and I really want to go into a deep meditation, and I think everybody can kind of relate to this, like people, beach lovers, ocean lovers. Just the sound of water. I'll
Mm.
turn on like the faucet in my bathroom, or a babbling brook on my phone, whatever it is. That sound of water, like you said, it's very calming, and it gets me to like that space very quickly. So yeah.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I'm very passionate about the spirituality part of the board too. So it's not just just a fitness program, but it is. We talk about the spirituality of water, and we bring that, and how we in this practice we want to be more like water. So when I teach wave salutations. When we move. I tell you guys like water to be more fluid. Yeah. So.
That's awesome. And I was just gonna say, speaking of the water and having the fountain on, or the foam with rain music or
Mhm.
waterfall music, that can be also part of the class too for your
Yeah.
yoga
Yeah.
class too in the
I
background.
do at the end. At the end,
Mm.
in the meditation, the last part, I'll just play with some water. Um, and either I do a guided meditation with the water, and then leave you guys for a few moments. Yeah,
Mm.
even the music, I try to play like, either Hawaii music or Puerto Rico, like usually reggae music, like
Mm.
fun,
Right.
but stuff that's still like connected, that still has a meaning, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so actually, I looked it up on Amazon. I didn't really see it. I just typed in yoga board, and I wasn't really finding that thing. And I know you have a website. So where can people find the board? And
So right now on Etsy, you can find it. I'm still waiting for I guess, my number to put on the board. So yeah, Amazon was there was a couple more steps.
mm,
So they want a barcode, so I had to
uh,
apply for that. So that probably will be up within like the next week or so, but you can find it on Etsy. And that's really mostly where I've been selling the board, Etsy and on Facebook.
oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah.
And so is there like so if people listen to the podcast and they want to get the board, just mention yoga sizes.
Yes, they mentioned, yeah, if you buy the board, right, you hear the
Mhm.
podcast, make sure you absolutely say yoga size, or right, yoga sizes,
Yeah, yoga sizes.
and in the um, in the email
Hmm.
when they purchase it.
Okay. And
In
how
the
can
note.
in a note? Okay.
In
And
a note, yeah. So when you purchase the board, you can leave a note, because you can buy the board just plain. Most people don't. Some people will want a message. I had somebody who wanted to "May the light within you shine on," or I forgot exactly. But so some people will leave. They want a different message. So there's an area where there's a note, so you can just make sure that that you put yoga size in there.
okay, awesome. And what's your website, social media? How can they reach out to you?
So, yeah, you can reach out to me at powersyoga.com, or my social media. Facebook is Andrea Powers, or at Powers Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And from Powers Yoga, yeah, you can find the yoga board from there as well.
Okay. And you do virtual classes too?
I do virtual classes, yeah, with the board, but we are going to be really doing it probably all on YouTube.
Mm.
On Saturday mornings, I always do a live Saturday morning class.
Mm.
Everybody's been attending Saturday mornings. That seems pretty solid. And then during the week, I've gotten a lot. People just want to be able to have like 15, 30-minute classes on YouTube that they can go easily access.
Okay.
But I
And
always have my live classes on Saturday morning.
Oh, nice. And then
Yeah,
you were,
just that way that I
yeah.
can, if anybody has questions or,
Mm.
you know, I like the connection. Yeah, so we probably have like anywhere from about 10 people that will join us on a Saturday morning. So depending on the day, but more and more are joining. And it's all across the country too. So that's fun. It's from, Jersey or Texas, Washington. So they're all over. So
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. And I guess I'll post that link as well so people can join your class when they can and or watch the replays, right?
Yeah, so you could do that all through Powers Yoga. Powers
Okay.
Yoga, you can find the classes, there's bundles. So if you buy the yoga board, I have the door yoga. So there's different things that you guys can, a variety of things you guys can check out.
Awesome. That sounds great. Is there any additional tips or recommendations or thoughts, insights you'd like to share?
You know what? I'd love to share that if there's any other yoga teachers that we are looking to put together a yoga board team. So we're looking for other yoga teachers to join our team, to also be able to get the word out there, for them to teach, to find their own yoga community. Like I said, I just started. Well, I don't know if I started taking out the board again just recently. Kind of put it on the back burner because I had an injury. And I've really just been back at it for about a month or two. And I sold 20 boards and without really trying, just putting it out there little by little. And it's starting to like kind of roll. And I've had somebody who just asked me, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, why not? And they get 25%. So if a yoga teacher was interested in becoming a teacher with the board, they get 25% off the board, and then any board that they sell through their community, yoga community, they get 25%. And then they can teach their own classes with the board as well. If they wanted to do their own live classes, or I've traveled with the board too. So I go to, like I said, I have 6 boards right now, and I go to other yoga studios and teach workshops and such.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. I had a really
You're
great
welcome.
time watching you do that, and it's pretty amazing because I've never really, I mean, I've experienced it on the water, but I never really, had a board, of course, to try it at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, they're different. This can be harder in one way, and then the water can be harder in another way. The water is hard because you can't do as much, and it's same thing with here. But at least with here, it's real easy. You take it out. I have it. You saw. I just had it kind of here. I have my friend who puts it underneath her bed. And what's nice too, when I'm not using the board, sometimes I just use the cushions. So you have
Mm.
the cushions that I've done just core work with. Right. Yeah. So it's a variety that you can do.
Yeah. So this is also a good way for people who have afraid of the water, who like have a phobia. They can
Mm-hmm.
actually practice at home on like you know uh, a wooden hard surface, not
Yeah.
near the water,
And you
and then
can pick it up.
gradually move to yeah.
I know a couple of like a physical therapists, a few physical therapists, and have gotten the board. A physical therapist and maybe an occupational therapist have gotten the board to use it to work with their clients.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, which I didn't, put that together until I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Right.
awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining
You're a
us.
sweetheart. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks.